Cool.
What's your name?
Danielle.
Danielle. Danielle.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Stephen. And if you're familiar at all with the show, this is just where we engage in civil discussion, dialogue on issues that are usually pretty controversial. They result in talking points with a lot of people, and you don't get to see full-length conversations. So, I believe there are two genders.
Okay.
You're welcome to change my mind.
I think that I think human biology is really complicated. I think that gender identity is real and intrinsic, and I think that I don't think there's a binary.
Sorry.
I don't think there's a binary for anything.
Can I ask you, are you transgender?
I am actually. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sweaty this morning.
That's okay. No,
and it's funny. I was walking down the street and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a sign, right, to have this conversation.
So, what do you believe is wrong, I guess, about my statement? You said
there's two genders?
Yeah.
I think I've come to realize, so I'm trans, right?
Yeah.
And that why we are the way we are, like what makes our core humanity, right, is beautifully complicated. So like my son's got a genetic disorder, right? He's missing an enzyme that lets him metabolize 2 amino acids, right? Why that is, we have no idea. Like it was a biological variation, it's true, right? It doesn't diminish his humanity,
right?
But it is fundamentally different. Now, like why I'm trans, to be honest with you, I don't know, right? Now it took me 37 years to stop fighting what I knew to be true from the earliest ages, like as a child, to work my way through the social stigma of my reality, which was that I know I'm different. I don't understand why I am. I don't know why I would, go and hide in the bathroom and wear my sister's clothes, right? Like when I was 7, right? Like, yet it all got wrapped into the expectations of society.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm just kind of unwrapping this carefully. You said the truth of your reality.
Yeah.
That you are a woman.
A transgender woman. Yeah.
Okay. How do you know that's the truth?
How do I know that it's true?
Yeah.
How do you know that you're a heterosexual, I presume, heterosexual cisgender man?
Okay.
It's presumptuous, right?
No, well, that's okay. That was presumptuous, but correct.
Okay.
Well, I think this is obviously a big component of the lgbtqai community that preferences, sexuality preferences. As far as I'm attracted to women, that's a preference, obviously. So it's innate. I was born, I like women, and biologically I was born a male because I have a penis and the hormonal profile and chromosomes of a male. So that's how I know that it's true to state that I'm a male.
That you're the male because you're a male because like you're XY.
I didn't simplify it to XY, a multitude of factors. I have a male brain, I have a male body, everything from bone density to my hormonal profile to, yes, my penis. All of these things pretty clearly would file me in the cabinet under male, biologically.
Like in the spectrum of biological variation, you're in that big collection of people that have all of those things in alignment.
Yeah.
There are people, right, like 2/3 of 1% is the best number now, right? That are transgender, based on what we know.
Sure.
Which in Texas is like 130,000 adults, right? Who, for reasons that are still unknown, don't have all of those biological components that you described. Don't align as cleanly as yours do.
Okay. Well, you say, unknown. Again, this goes back to you said your truth that you are a female.
Yeah.
You asked me why am I a male. I hope that I've answered it as clearly as I can.
Right.
So I would return that same question to you because I think we need to start with the presupposition. There needs to be the same amount of validity to our arguments as far as us rationalizing them. You said the truth that you are a female. Yeah. You were born a male. How do you know that's the truth?
I was born a transgender woman.
Okay, and how do you know that's the truth?
How do I know that's the truth? Like, in what biological context? Is it validated? Is that the question?
Yeah, how do you know that you're not simply a man who believes he's a woman?
How do you, why are you, if you're heterosexual, why are you attracted to women?
Well, there's a lot of biological mechanisms in there, namely to procreate since the beginning of civilization.
If somebody is attracted, same-sex attracted, to a gay man, do you believe that that's not their intrinsic reality?
Well, again, it's a sexual preference, and I think that's very important because the sexual preference is different from biology, right? And this is what I find also pretty interesting to me is right now they're teaching that, obviously you're born gay, but gender is a choice, and that to me I just don't agree with. So, how do you know? You say that you're a transgender, you were born a transgender woman, right?
Yeah.
But I would assume on your birth certificate it said male.
Right.
So at some point you made the decision to live the way that you live right now, correct?
At some point I made the decision, it was almost a decade ago, to unpack all of the guilt and shame I felt for being different, right? And at some point I made the decision to unpeel guilt and shame, right, about my truth, and to start trying to reconcile it with the rest of my life, and to reconcile it with a society that is still pretty hostile to people who are different. So it was a question of no longer fighting against myself.
Yeah.
So, and then even after I did that, I spent another 6 years desperately trying to not accept that. I accepted the truth, and I'm like, how do I reconcile with that? I'm an engineer, a civil engineer. I'm a parent of a special needs child, right? Like, how can I be who I knew I am and still function in society? So it took me years, and eventually I realized that I don't have a choice. Like, we look at the news this morning, right? And with Tony Bourdain, taking his life, right?
Right.
So 40% of transgender people attempt suicide.
Can I pause you right there really quickly? Just first off, I hope that I haven't been hostile. I know you talked about
haven't been hostile at all. No, this is a great.
Okay, good.
We're good.
Because I know we disagree, but I certainly don't want to be disrespectful to you personally, even if I disagree with you. So
I don't find that we disagree, actually.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that way, because the last thing I want is for you to feel as though you've been sat down and it's been a sandbagging. And you've brought up Anthony Bourdain. You brought up the suicide rate. I think that's very important. It's about 41%. It doesn't get better after hormone replacement therapy, or even actually doing the full sex reassignment surgery.
So here we are, right? I will disagree with you.
Okay.
I think the data shows that when people are able to live their lives as themselves and are accepted in their community, in their social networks, that's their friends and their family, professionally, in their city, when they're not stigmatized, when they don't lose their job, when they don't lose their housing, when they aren't ostracized or demonized, right? Like our state legislature spent the last spring and then called a special session essentially to demonize my existence based on somebody's, I don't honestly, sincerely held religious belief. I'm not sure why, but to basically challenge my very validity as a human being, right? Then, people can be frustrated and scared and terrified and hopeless and then kill themselves. But in my community, when people are able to live their lives and are accepted and able to, aren't discriminated, right? Then their suicide rates fall dramatically. The single best thing you can do for somebody who's LGBTQ of any sort, but especially trans, is recognize their truth and accept their humanity.
Well, I would disagree with you there. And first off, I think you made a couple. Let me explain why. You made a couple of presumptions. Maybe they're not trying to demonize your very existence. Maybe they just disagree with you, and maybe it doesn't come from a Christian perspective. Maybe it comes from a scientific one. Maybe it comes from a perspective of a medical perspective. For example, at Johns Hopkins.
No, that's okay.
I think we're okay having a conversation, you and I, right now, right?
We're good.
We're good. Thank you, though. And the suicide rate statistically, anecdotally, I'm glad to hear that your group of friends do better. Because one thing, I definitely don't want people attempting suicide in a 41%.
It's not just my friends. I mean, the data from the National Center for Trans Equality, the Equality Texas, HRC, it's not like my anecdotal sort of group of friends. The scientific data shows that when people are not discriminated against, and when transgender individuals who are able to live their life, whether they, just transition socially or have hormone replacement therapy or have surgery, whatever, when people are able to live their lives, their mental health is better.
Well, statistically, it's inaccurate. Statistically, the suicide rate doesn't really improve after
I'm
sex
going to keep
reassignment
pushing back
therapy.
on that, so maybe that's something we can follow up on.
Let's assume it's comparable. Let's assume it's slightly lower. Let's go with that. I've seen the studies that you're talking about, and it might be slightly lower. It's not dramatically lower. But I think this is predicated on the idea, and I don't think it's an ill-founded idea, that because of discrimination, because of societal pressure, because of feeling like an outsider, people have more mental health issues. People are more prone to depression. People are more likely to attempt suicide if they feel ostracized and isolated, right?
Yeah, if they're treated as less than human.
I would agree. But the fact is, minorities generally commit suicide or attempt it in far fewer numbers. For example, white males are 2 times more likely than black men. The transgender attempted suicide rate is higher than American slaves or Jews in concentration camps. Are we to believe that they've been treated more poorly in modern America than American slaves or Jews in Auschwitz?
You're asking me to compare transgender individuals to
the statistical reality that nowhere else do you find that suicide rate outside of some serious psychiatric disorders, including those who have been enslaved. Which might suggest again that this is not a truth, as you said. People may perceive it as a reality, but it may not be ideal to treat it just telling people that that's the truth, that's the reality, when it's in conflict with biology and their hormones and their brain and their biological makeup, because it can have catastrophic results. How many genders are there?
How many genders?
How many pronouns are there? What do we do with people who don't use the proper pronouns?
I think we treat everybody with respect, right? So if you came to me and said, I would prefer that you use they, them, right? Because I'm non-binary, or Z0, okay? Which is like...
a new term, yeah.
Which is actually an old term. Z0 is older than they, them, right? And linguists will like debate, which is more linguistically correct. And I think that, language is an attempt to describe our society. So if you asked me to use they, them, I would work to use they, them because I want to respect you, right? But now, if I inadvertently said he, right, instead, I wouldn't consider that hate speech, right?
Well, for example, I asked you if you were transgender when you sat down.
Yeah.
I've asked people that who were transgender, and they were immediately very offended.
Yeah.
But again, I have to know so that I don't misgender you, so that I don't get into trouble. This is a society we created. It divides us more than it unites us. And I tried to ask you in a respectful way with that, but
I don't think it divides us at all.
Well, you should have seen this lady in Ann Arbor. She wasn't happy about it.
She wasn't happy that you asked?
Yeah, transgender.
Well, I think it's a very personal question, right? And
I don't think it's very... If we go back to how many genders are there, how many pronouns are there, if we're going to restructure society, I think we need to know.
Yeah, but let's go back to why does my gender identity, like in normal moving about society, right?
Yeah.
Why does whether I'm trans or not matter to you?
Yeah, well, because it's a central building block for society, the American family. We see statistically that children do better with a mother and a father in the household. It's the biggest determining factor.
All right.
It's the biggest determining factor in poverty, crime, whether they go on to college, whether they end up in prison, whether they have a family of their own, happiness, mental illness, mom and dad, and his dad specifically still in the household. I mean, we talk about these social programs, welfare, we talk about improving education. If we could have more families with a mother and a father with the children, there would be nothing that could affect the productivity and the outcome for children.
Yeah. Am I a lesser parent to my son because I'm trans?
I believe that all children, blanket statement, do better with a mother and a father in the household.
What about that family arrangement is intrinsically better than a mother and another mother, or 2 fathers, or a mother and a transgender mother?
It's a fair question. I
So
believe that.
What about it is better, other than it's not the majority?
Right.
But how is that intrinsically better?
Right. Well, the reason the statistics would reflect that, as far as productivity and outcomes with children, is because, and in my these are the statistics. My opinion, and again, you have a lot of sociologists and scientists who look at this. I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't believe that 2 mothers can provide everything that a mother and a father can provide a child, and I don't believe that 2 fathers can provide everything that a mother and a father can provide a child. I don't believe men and women are interchangeable, and I think that's the core issue right now.
Okay, and
when we say gender's non-binary, there's a spectrum, and we haven't gotten definitive answers on any of this. We're saying that gender is
definitive answers. That's the.
I think we do. I think we do.
Yeah, I don't know that we do. I don't like in my life when I'm moving about the world, right?
Yeah.
When I'm practicing as an engineer, taking care of my son, like what my chromosomes look like is not, it has nothing to do with how I'm able to interact in society and how I'm able to take care of him. And
I think it has a lot to do with it.
I'll tell you my lived experience is that I am just as capable of taking care of my son now as I was before, and in many ways better, because I'm no longer fighting with the crushing burden of knowing something to be true, right? And not being able to live it. So then when you talk about people in a family that is a mother and a father being somehow healthier for children, I come back to so much of the health in our families and in our lives has to do with everything else in our social stigma that we're living with. So yeah, something, my reality now as living in the world.
You keep saying my reality, my truth.
My truth.
What's the reality? The truth, I think, is what matters to find common ground. What's
my
the
truth?
truth?
Is the truth for me. It's that simple.
That's just another way of saying my truth. What's the truth? Biologically, what's the truth scientifically?
The truth biologically is all creatures are phenomenally complicated, and the truth biologically is different for every one of us. Peter's truth biologically is different, but it doesn't make him any less human.
No, it doesn't make him any less human.
So there's no truth.
Just like an 8-week-old fetus is no less human than a baby, and that's why I'm pro-life. This is human DNA. This is a genetic code that determines your...
So then the idea
I don't think that anyone is less human. Just like I don't think so. Listen, I have family members who are bipolar.
Right, but
I've had suicides in the family with people.
What you keep saying is that my truth is
I'm not really able to say a whole lot. I haven't really gotten many words in. I haven't really been able to express my opinion, but I'd continue.
Well, I want to... and then...
I think
my truth and the truth is the question I'm trying to figure out.
Yes.
Is that what I hear from you when you keep saying what is the truth is that there is one singular answer for what it means to be human, or what it means to be male, or what it means to be female.
We're specifically discussing gender.
For gender. And what I'm saying is there's not. There isn't. There's never been. Through history, there's never been. When you look at literature all the way back into the Bible, it reflects, the historical record reflects that our biology, our humanity has always been beautifully complicated. So it's not, this is not...
I don't disagree with that statement, but I do disagree with the idea that gender is a spectrum and that there's a limitless amount. I just disagree with that.
Yeah, I know there's lots of people.
I know
you do, right?
What was your name again?
Danielle.
Danielle, thank you, Danielle. I appreciate you taking the time.
Too, it's good.
I hope this has been productive for you as well as myself. I really do appreciate you sitting down and we're having a civil dialogue, even if we disagree. Listen, honesty above civility, but I think you should have both.
Can I ask a request?
Yes.
Actually, is that imagine a world where people were debating whether you were as legitimate in your humanity as you.
I'm not debating that you're legitimate in your humanity.
I know,
just as I'm not debating that my relative who's bipolar is legitimate in humanity.
But I'm saying, imagine a world where you are.
Yeah, but I'm not.
I'm not suggesting you. I'm talking about our society right now.
I think you're misconstruing. I think if someone says there's two genders, you think that's demonization.
No, I think that's demonizing. I'm asking you to have to go into your headspace.
Sure.
Imagine navigating a world where people come up and actually challenge your legitimacy.
Yeah, which I've done.
My truth,
right,
the truth.
Which I've done. I'll grant you that I've done.
Yeah, and imagine living in that space where strangers can debate whether or not you are as legitimate.
Yeah.
That's all I ask.
It's not about legitimate. It's about the truth. They're debating as to whether or not it's the truth.
Legitimacy and the truth. So what's the difference between those?
Yeah, there's a big difference when it's your truth or my truth, and we're talking about legitimacy. Legitimacy would be much more congruent with the truth.
And
so if someone says gender is not a spectrum, if someone says there are two genders, and that the biological research would back this up, and that I don't think it's productive to continue down this trail, certainly of a limitless gender spectrum, that's not questioning your legitimacy as a human. That is questioning the nature of the condition, the nature of how you identify and why that is the case, and the ramifications societally.
So then you're implying that there's something wrong with me.
I'm implying that I believe you're incorrect. I believe you were born a male, and I still would believe that you're a male. Yeah, I won't misgender you.
So
I don't be rude.
imagine a world where people could tell you that you're incorrect.
That happens all the time. yeah, it's not a good feeling, but this is an issue. No, I appreciate it, Danielle. Thank you very much. I think a friend here would like to get in.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.